Welcome to hour number two of the Art Lewis Show for this Wednesday morning. And we're going to talk about a serious topic this morning, opioid funding and how it's being used. And we have some guests with us from the Bay Area Community Foundation. Its head, we say good morning to Shauna Walraven. Shauna, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
And you brought a guest. Tell us who you brought with you.
I did. Maddie Searing, our program officer, who's going to be helping us administer these opioid remediation funds.
So let's talk about this. First of all, how did the foundation get involved in the opioid that fund?
Yes, it is a mouthful for sure. So with a great partnership with Bay County, we saw an opportunity to assist them in distributing the opioid remediation funds. So the history is that when this settlement was made, the attorney generals in each state are sort of in charge of administering those, and the money was going to county governments and to other municipalities. And they are in charge then of granting that money out to the people doing the opioid remediation work, which is really what community foundations do as our normal bread and butter business. So it's really a great partnership where we're able to help out the county doing those funds.
So what does that actually mean, opioid remediation?
Sure. So to eliminate the use of opioids in our county, and there are very specified ways in which, from prevention to treatment through recovery, that those funds can be used. And so that's what we are identifying are the nonprofits who are working in that space and the programs that they are working on that impact people in our community and distributing those funds.
Without getting technical, none of us are doctors. Opioids obviously have caused a lot of problems. Yet at the same time, they're also a valuable medical tool. How do we balance that?
It's a great question and way above my pay grade, Art. I do not know that, and I know that there's been a ton of research done, and part of our work in this opioid space is really to educate both ourselves as the foundation and our committee members on those issues so that we're able to most effectively distribute those funds to do the things that treat people who have problems. So we're talking about opioid use disorder, not, the normal and customary treatment.
We're talking about addiction.
Addiction, absolutely. Yes. And other coexisting substance use disorders that come with opioid use disorder as well.
So the county gets the money. Mm-hmm. You become the pass-through. How does an organization, the end user who's doing the remediation work, how do they get these funds?
Yes. So we just opened our grant cycle, and then that will close on September 14th. Mm-hmm. And they apply. They'll, tell us about their program, tell us what they're doing, what they want to do, and then we will evaluate it and make those recommendations.
What's your role in all that, Maddie?
Yeah, so basically I'll be facilitating, so kind of acting as a bridge between, those nonprofit organizations who are doing the on-the-ground work and the committee members who will be reviewing. So we're planning to do, a preliminary educational meeting with our committee members where we're bringing in, some of those community experts to talk about, how we got here in the first place. A little background on, all the logistics of the lawsuits and the remediation funding, and then talking about that actual scope of the state of the community as far as addiction is concerned. So I'll be working with nonprofit organizations, on the technical side to, submit those letters of intent, review the applications, ask them any questions I think, committee members may have, and then I'll get that review out to our members and they'll do the evaluation and recommendations.
So how long before these dollars, which have been in the news now forever, how long before these dollars actually hit the street?
Mm-hmm. So I do want to make sure to point out that the county did this work actually already. So dollars have already been in the community from the county. This is just a new take on the process. And as more and more dollars are coming in, it's becoming more cumbersome for the county. So we're here to assist with that.
The dollars still coming?
Dollars are still coming through 2038.
So it's spread out.
It's spread out.
It wasn't all dumped all at once.
Right. And so as the dollars are coming in, the county will distribute those to us, and then we can make sure that they're getting out into the community. So in this grant cycle, we're going to distribute $400,000, and that will happen by mid-November.
Is that the same amount every year?
It will depend on how much is coming in. So the county made an initial distribution to us of $1.3 million. And without knowing what's coming going forward, we want to make sure that we're funding programs that are sustainable so that we're not infusing cash into programs that we then can't support next year. So that at least would let us go through next year and the following year if we stayed at that same pace. Now we may increase or decrease depending on what additional dollars are coming in and honestly what need we see and the impact that we're able to have in our community.
So we go back to the question I asked about when do your dollars hit the street?
Mid-November of this year.
So the application process starts when?
It's already started. You can
Yes.
apply today.
So we're
Yes.
open now. We'll close on September 14th, and committees will do their review in October. So our Board of Trustees will meet to review their recommendations in mid-November, and about maybe a week or two after that date, we'll have checks out to the organizations that have received an award, and they'll be able to start doing that work.
Any idea how many organizations are involved in opioid remediation in Bay?
Great question.
Yes.
Offhand, I don't have, a preliminary number, but we've seen, quite a high level of interest in applying for funding. So it'll be interesting to see what comes in through this first cycle.
And they're a very collaborative group. They work well together and really do share resources and network well together. I know I've been involved in a few calls where different organizations come together to talk about what projects they're working on together and about how they can share resources. So it is a very collaborative and very passionate group.
And pretty much, though, it's pretty much, all doing the same thing. It's all education, isn't it?
Education is one piece, prevention is another piece, and then treatment and recovery are additional pieces. So they all have sort of a piece of the pie. They're not really duplicating services as much as I'm.
Yeah. From what, I've heard from organizations already, you might see, one client in many different organizations at different stages of their journey. So maybe someone starts out, they come into a harm reduction program. They're not interested, in seeking help yet. They're not onto that recovery phase. And so one organization might have that harm reduction piece. And that might get them, eventually to a place where they move into a different organization that's working more closely with recovery and treatment. And, eventually they may go to a housing program after to get them back on their feet. So I think they're seeing, a lot of collaboration between the clients that they serve, but they're all managing, different pieces of that puzzle.
But all based on opioid addiction.
Opioid use disorder, yes.
Use disorder. I didn't call it,
yes.
it's fancy words.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
addiction.
Yes. And and co-occurring substance use disorder. So it's not always just opioids. Sometimes there are other substances, which is an allowable use of the funding.
When the money was first put forth, were there rules? I mean, does that opioid money come with a bunch of rules and restrictions?
Absolutely. And so interesting for me to be in this space now, because if you remember, I was at the county before coming to the Community Foundation. And I was actually serving as Assistant Corporation Counsel under County Executive Jim Barsha. And he was one of the first people interested in starting this lawsuit. And so we used to work on how the strategy for how that lawsuit would be handled. We would look at damages. How do we quantify some of the damages? And so it was very interesting, even looking at digging through jail billings. Is someone in jail because they are addicted to opioids, or is it other substances, and how do we quantify that? And what are the costs that the county and the taxpayers are paying because of this opioid use disorder? So it's been sort of a full circle moment for me to now be on the receiving end of this. So a lot of that strategy in the lawsuit has come out now in restrictions on how those funds are used.
A lot of lawsuits, but in the end, it became a big federal lawsuit, didn't it?
It did. And so that was Jim Barsha, through the National County Executives Association, was able to get the entire country on board.
But Jim pretty much has been instrumental in this, hasn't he?
He absolutely has, yes.
Unbelievable. All right, we're going to take a break and be back with our guest, talk more about it, talk more about the foundation, too. When we return, let me talk about Krysiak's House Family Restaurant for a moment. Best place to go for your authentic home-cooked foods with a European flair and at reasonable prices. Now's the time to think about getting together with friends and family for lunch or dinner, as well as events coming up soon. Graduations, confirmations, weddings, showers, anniversaries, you name it. Krysiak's has an economical way for you to supply the food. You can order what you want in Polish and American foods. Just pick it up right there at the restaurant, ready to go. Or you can have your celebration right there at the restaurant. Don't forget, at a moment's notice, Krysiak's can help. Give them a call at 989-894-5531. Krysiak's House Family Restaurant, corner of Cass and Michigan on Bay City's south side. Online, krysiaks.com. You think you know how to spell it? Okay. KRZYSIAKS.com. We'll be back.
Tight margins. The Art Lewis Show, weekday mornings at 9 on 100.5 and 790. News Radio WSGW.
And we're back with you on that very show. In studio with me, Shauna Walraven. She heads up the Bay County area, the Bay Area Community Foundation. And with her, her programs person, Maddie Searing, talking about the opioid funds that are used for remediation in Bay County. Who do you answer to? And the reason I ask that is it's a federal lawsuit. Federal government got the money, distributed the money to states. The states distribute the money to counties. Counties do with it what counties do with it. Who's setting all the rules? For example, because every state was allowed to set their own criteria, Michigan has an opioid council, so to speak. Who do you answer to?
The Michigan Attorney General is responsible for the use of the opioid settlement funds in Michigan. So ultimately, that is who we answer to through a contract with the county. So we also report back to the County Board of Commission about how those funds are used and that we are appropriately maintaining all of the guidelines and program guidelines that they set up.
When you distribute funds, and this might be true to other things you do too, but when you distribute funds to an organization, how soon after that do you follow up with them to see that they're spending the money the way the money is supposed to be spent?
Sure. Maddie, do you want to?
So our typical grant period is within a year. So they'll be assigned a final report at the time of their grant award. And at any point within that year period, they can go in and talk about, how they've used the funds and did they use them how they said that they would. And so for some organizations, it might take that full year to expend that funding, but others may finish, expending that funding 4 months or 6 months in. But any time within that year period is what we would typically look at.
So anybody who's receiving funds from you is responsible for telling you how they use them.
Definitely.
Yes.
Good stewardship. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then we report back to our Board of Trustees who oversees ultimately all the decisions that the committees recommend to the Board of Trustees.
So that's an interesting question. Who do these community foundations, in which there are many, who do they answer to? Who's the overall big kahuna of foundations in the state of Michigan?
Yes, the big kahuna are the board of directors, and our volunteer boards for all of our nonprofits hold such an important role, and that's really something at the Community Foundation we've been trying to assist our local nonprofits with understanding is how important it is when you raise your hand and say, yes, I'll volunteer on this board, and you might be thinking, oh, I'll attend a few fundraisers and go to some meetings. Really, you have so much responsibility for how that organization operates. And we want to make sure as the Community Foundation that we're helping our nonprofit boards understand that great responsibility. And so we also stress that to our own Board of Trustees, what an incredible responsibility they have in making sure that all of the dollars are spent appropriately, that there's financial transparency, that decisions are being made ethically and with the highest operational standards.
And it should be understood, too, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shauna, but all of the funds in your foundation are all privately donated.
Yes.
You don't get grant money, state money, or anything like that, right?
Occasionally we do. During the SNAP pause last year when we were talking about that in our coalition, again, with the county and the city and the United Way of Bay County, the Bay Aranac ISD, as well as the chamber, we together wrote a grant for funds, and the Community Foundation was the fiduciary of that. So I've been on the other side of it too, so I do understand those things. But for the most part, no, it's all private donations.
Were you an attorney by training?
I am.
What? Just out of curiosity, what got you into public practice rather than private practice?
Sure. Well, a couple things. When I went to law school, I looked at the financial equation of it and thought, oh, wow, I'm definitely going to have to go into some sort of public loan forgiveness program in order to make that work. But that didn't deter me. I have always had a heart for nonprofit work and for public service, and so that was actually a great fit. I've been a volunteer at the Community Foundation during my time working as an attorney, and so really that sort of just led me to this passion for sure.
What led you to the foundation?
So I actually served on the grants committee, and that was the first interaction with the Community Foundation, was reviewing those grants, looking at, as Maddie said, nonprofits, talking about what programs they can do, the impact that they can have. And those get to be intense discussions. So that was definitely something I wasn't afraid of, given my training, was having sort of those debates about the benefits, because when it comes right down to it, all of our nonprofits are applying for things that are good in our community. It's just what ones can we afford to fund and which ones will have the greatest impact. And those are hard conversations. And I will say, I think those conversations are getting harder as funding is tightening and we're seeing more need. So that was sort of my first interaction, was on our grants committee. And that same type of interaction will happen with those opioid funds and happens with our community partnership grants.
Why are fundings tightening? I was under the impression we're pretty generous.
Yes.
As a people.
For sure. As people, we are very generous and in our community. But corporate philanthropy is definitely tightening as profits are tightening. And also federal and state resources are not the same as they have been. And so nonprofits are feeling a lot of stress. And I think, given the inflationary environment, our residents are feeling a lot of stress. And so we have had more basic need type applications in our more recent community partnership grant cycle than we have seen recently.
But are you still growing?
We are absolutely still growing. And that's, partially due because the market environment has been so great. So we are fortunate to have a very nice endowment that helps us grow and helps us do more good in the community. So each dollar that you're giving to us, we are making a permanent impact and legacy in our communities.
Out of curiosity, because there are foundations in Bay, Midland, Saginaw, what have you, you guys ever work together regionally to fund a regional project?
Yes. And I want to say we have amazing community foundations in our region, and I am so thankful that we do all work together, and we meet monthly to talk about, all the ways that we are working on projects together or separately, or how our work can just dovetail so that we're all steering the boat in the same direction and not sort of competing against each other.
Is that true in the opioid fund area too?
So the opioid area is specific by county. We're constrained by that given our relationship with Bay County and with those settlement dollars. I am hopeful. So Kalamazoo Community Foundation was the first foundation to work with their county to distribute these funds. As far as I'm aware, we're the second. And so I do hope that this will grow. We're pretty new at this game, and it's been a new experience, and we're doing it a little different than Kalamazoo County chose to do it as well. So I'm hopeful that this will spread to other community foundations if they're interested in doing that work, because it really does seem like an alignment of synergy. Different in every state? Different in every state. I'm not quite as familiar with the other states, how they've decided to do it, but I know that there are some overarching federal guidelines, but I'm sure it's different, and even in every county, how it's being administered.
And you said this settlement, it goes through 2030 something?
So there are payments expected in Bay County through 2038. I believe the time period is actually 2040 or 2045 that payments could be made. But for Bay County, we are expecting payments through 2038.
All right, another break and we'll be back with our guests.
When something goes wrong,
And we are back with you, talking to Shauna Walraven. She is the head of the Bay Area Community Foundation, and her program specialist, Maddie Searing, with her, talking about a number of things, but one of them the opioid funds and the distribution of those funds. This is an annual thing, isn't it? It's going to be every year you're going to go through this process?
Yes, that is our plan. The county will make a determination annually to continue funding the program with the funds that they receive, taking out any funds that they have for their own internal programs, whether that's through their community corrections, recovery court, or jail programs. And then any funds that they do not use will come to the Community Foundation for distribution.
I would suspect that to continue. I don't think they want to get involved in the day-to-day hassles of that.
I think they went through one grant cycle and sort of realized, wow, this is a lot of work and actually a skilled area that requires expertise in this area. And so we're really happy to provide that because we do that with our community partnership and other grant opportunities.
So, Maddie, do I understand this is not the only thing you do?
This is not the only thing I do. So as a program officer, I work mainly on competitive grant programs, which we have a few of, as well as some nonprofit capacity building pieces as well.
Nonprofit capacity building. What does that mean?
Yeah. So when we talk about capacity building, we want to ensure that we have nonprofits that are strong, not only now, but in the future. So a lot of what we talk about are things like sustainability and board governance. Capacity can be, in terms of staffing or volunteer support. And so, we offer a few things throughout the year to support nonprofits as best we can. So, two of the main things we work on are Catch a Fire, which is actually a regional resource that we have. And that's a nonprofit capacity building platform. And so it's actually a company that we partner with, and they provide at no cost to nonprofits free professional services. And so anyone can volunteer through Catch a Fire with a specific skill set. And so that might be, marketing, legal counsel, HR, things of that nature. And nonprofits can post projects on the platform and say, I need policies created in an HR department, but we don't have, a typical HR that you would think of. And they can match with those volunteers to create those policies. Something else that we do are some nonprofit capacity workshops. And so about twice a year right now, we're putting on, some field relevant topic workshops. And so we've got one coming up in November. It'll be on November 12th. And that'll be at the DoubleTree. And so we'll be talking about, strategic planning for nonprofits and what that can look like.
So let me ask you, Shauna, as an attorney, a nonprofit comes to you. They do not have their 501c3 yet. They want to know how to get it.
Sure.
Do you help them in that capacity?
We help talk them through the process of sort of way more than that. What is the need that they're serving in the community? How are they intending to serve that need? Are there other organizations currently working in that space? Is there a way that they can partner? A lot of times, and I certainly don't want to discourage anyone because we certainly have unmet needs in our community, but also a lot of time people have great ideas about how to do it and might lack some of the information about how that execution would look. So what is their funding plan? What does that look like? You have to really have a business plan for a nonprofit, even though you're not making a profit. So how do you plan to sustain yourself? Sometimes there's this thought of, well, once I become a 501c3, then all of this money will come to me. And so we have to dispel that myth. Yes, that doesn't exactly work that way. So we have some of those hard conversations in terms of just filing their 501c3 paperwork. We don't generally help with those kind of nuts and bolts things. We may talk about, how can we incubate them? How can we help them grow to see if there is, a need, and also people wanting to support the need that they're wanting to address. So we do talk with people interested in starting their own nonprofit.
And the reality is, it's a pain in the neck to get a 501c3, but there's a reason for that.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of financial transparency that needs to happen and a lot of governance work that needs to happen in order to set up an organization like that. And, as we've kind of touched on, you need very strong, committed volunteers to help through that time.
And, there are rules on how you set up the board and type of organization, all that stuff.
Bylaws. It's a lot more than people think. It's more than renting a space and helping people. So we want, when people come to us with the idea of starting a nonprofit, we want to make sure that they're exposed to all of that, not to discourage them at all, but really just to make sure that they're going in eyes wide open.
Now, I know in Saginaw, and I'm going to ask you if it's the same in Bay, if I'm, let's say, a fledgling nonprofit, I don't have a 501c3, but I got a good idea. Can I come under your umbrella and operate my nonprofit with your 501c3, so to speak?
Sort of. It's so we
sort of as
sort
well.
of yes. It's sort of. It depends. So we have project funds, and so we are able to sort of, I consider it like incubating some of those nonprofit ideas, and they'll create a fund, and so they're able to receive contributions in a tax deductible through us.
They open an account with you, in effect.
Yes. And so we're able to sort of help them through that time. But yes, they have to have, a viable idea and a viable way to do all of those things, really to get started.
Yeah. And when we talk about kind of the technical side of it as well, we're lucky to have, really strong state organizations. So somewhere that I'll always point, someone who comes with an idea of they want to start a nonprofit is to the Michigan Nonprofit Association, because, they're available to really provide kind of that technical counseling on what it looks like, when you file with the IRS to start a nonprofit and all of those moving pieces that you need.
All right, quick break and one more segment with our guests. We will return after these notes.
Want to update your kitchen with...
All right, back with you in studio. Shauna Walraven heads up the Bay Area Community Foundation, and Maddie Searing is her program officer. Lots of things going on, particularly with opioid funding. We started with that conversation, so we'll end there. How much money did you have to work with this year?
So we received a distribution of $1.3 million from the county. And as I mentioned, they'll be receiving distributions, and there are sort of set amounts that they'll be receiving through the year 2038. And so that's the amount that we know we have from the county at this point, and then they'll make a determination by September 30th every year about what additional funding will be coming to us.
So you'll know on September 30th what happens in 2027, for example.
Absolutely.
And you would expect most of your programs to continue?
We do. Yes.
How many different opioid remediation organizations are you working with? Is there a number? Do we know?
I don't think we know. Maddie may have a better idea of how many have inquired so far, because it's early in our process. So our grant...
Is this the first year for this?
This is our first year doing this, and also our grant cycle will close on September 14th. So as I mentioned, I've been on the other side of writing grants, and it's sometimes difficult to get them in early. Sometimes you are working until that last moment to get your proposal in. So I don't fault any of the grantees who are still working on their proposals now.
I would say we've maybe had conversations with roughly 10 or so organizations at this time. But like Shauna had mentioned, I think we'll see, that higher volume start to come in maybe 2 or 3 weeks ahead of the deadline there. So we've only been open for a few weeks now, but things are definitely starting to pick up a little in terms of, organizations reaching out to have that initial conversation.
When you look at their applications, do you see a positive trend that these organizations are going to be able to do what they say they're going to do?
I think so. And a big, piece of those remediation guidelines is they talk about, they have to have evidence-based or evidence-informed programs, that they're putting on. And so when an organization submits an application, they'll be submitting with it, some of that data and research of this is the program that we're doing and here's, how we've seen it work already, in the community or on a national level, kind of those models at large. And so that will give us, a good idea of the impact that it can have moving forward and if they'll be able to, carry it out how they say they will.
Most of these organizations, though, are not new to this, are they? They've been around a while.
They've been around a while, so they definitely have, a really good idea of the landscape of the community. And even in these first few weeks, I've been able to learn a lot that I didn't know previously from the work that they've been doing.
Out of curiosity, and just to make things complicated, which government has a habit of doing, if you have an organization that is involved in opioid remediation, but they're also involved in substance abuse reduction and all of those things, do they have to separate that out? Because an individual, one person, could have multiple addictions.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have to separate the money and say, well, X dollars go to substance abuse, X dollars go to opioid?
So what's been, flexible about the guidelines already is, you're serving people who have opioid use disorder, and that can encompass any co-occurring substance use disorder or mental health conditions. And so long as the client they're serving has that initial opioid use disorder, any substance abuse that they may have with it or other mental health conditions would be covered as well.
As long as you're opioid addicted, everything else goes with it.
Right. You would meet that initial criteria.
The Community Foundation survives because people are generous.
And they are so generous.
How are donations doing?
Doing well, and we're very fortunate, really, as a community, to have the generosity of people and to really feel as though, we're taking care of each other. And as I've mentioned in the SNAP pause and in other times, we really see that, the community coming together.
Every year we talk to you about that Giving Day.
Yes.
That one day. Does that really work? I mean, do you see a big increase that day?
Absolutely. And more people participating, more nonprofits participating. It's our Give Local, Bay, Give Local Midland Day, where we focus on bolstering our nonprofits endowment, really to help those nonprofit organizations exist in a permanent way. All nonprofits want to be putting themselves out of business, but unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yeah. Do we know of any that have?
I'm sure there's a lot who would love to, but that doesn't seem to be the trend.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Well, Shauna, thanks for coming in and spending time with us today.
Thank you for having us. It was great to talk to you.
We'll do it again. Maddie,
Yeah,
nice to meet you.
You as well.
Good luck with all the applications.
Thank you. I think I'll need it.
That'll do it for the Art Lewis Show. News is next, and we'll be back with Focus.
Beautiful new